I was just reading some studies, actually, right before I was going to bed, and that'd be something interesting to post uh, before I would forget about it. So I'm just gonna post this quick video. I'm just trying to help others. That was one of the plans from this experience. We would do everything to help others, help humanity, and especially to protect our country and those countries abroad where we have family and friends. Now this study was interesting because we have several people in my family that are pre-diabetes, ranging all the way to type 2. And the study was interesting because it said that a lot of medical establishments, especially nowadays with the, how can I describe it? With the get 'em in, get 'em out, like the Medimall type. It's not even like that. It's not even like a Medimall. It's like a buffet medicine. Buffet medicine where you go along the line, get the stuff you need. They give you the stuff that they have, even if it's, barely warm, and then you get out of the way. And everybody pays, depending on what exactly they want. We'll call it buffet medicine. And when you're limited too, again, when you look at the buffet, you may not have everything you want there, but you take what's there. They will delay, and again, we can bring up the whole issue of testing ranges, depending on what lab somebody, a doctor or a clinic or even a hospital use. That also has a part to play in how quickly people are put on insulin therapy. And it was interesting to note in this study that they didn't say exact percentages, or maybe I didn't see the footnote or the citation, but it was interesting to note that they mentioned this. By the way, this is an NIH-funded study, and a significant portion of people who are taking oral glucose, oral, oral glucose treatment drugs, various kinds of oral insulin. It has a high degree of failure in preventing people from going to regular insulin therapy, meaning injections multiple times a day, or maybe once a day. And in addition to that, it shows to do absolutely nothing to stop the, let me forget the biochemistry. Let me forget it. That way I won't. I just want to forget it. And I did. Beta-lactase? Beta-lactam? No. Anyway, the particular pathways, the cells, the islet cells that create insulin, taking oral treatment for, pre-diabetes or early onset diabetes, the initial stages, a high failure rate to prevent people from going to insulin injection or insulin pump. Then why do it? This study, it was, maybe sometime I'll look up if there was a citation or a footnote there. But it's also interesting to note that in this country, the U.S., 36% of glycemic goals, that is, individual diabetics to get their diabetes under control, whether type 1 or type 2, 36% of the entire group, that means all diabetics in the U.S., and its territories, 36% fail to reach their yearly glycemic goals. Getting it under control, getting a certain H1B, H1AC, yeah, H1AC, to get an index that's stable. 36% fail. Well, when something fails, what we learn in the military and force protection and aggressive business tactics, when your approach is failing, you sit down, reassess, look at the failures, look at the criteria that caused them, and then you reapproach. So that's what this study is saying. They're advocating for people who are on the who've been like pre-diabetes for a long time, and at this point they can barely eat anything. They're advocating for doctors to start people learning how to do insulin injections, albeit controlled, very controlled. But they're advocating for, in addition to diet, of course, I mean, that's a given. That's a priori when you're dealing with glucose, any kind of glucose-related disease. Yeah, diet. But also advocating for people to use insulin injections, under certain circumstances, of course. That way, it prevents the destruction of pancreatic cells, the islet cells that are the ones that control and produce insulin. Because over time, taking oral, anybody who knows anything about biochemistry and about pharmacology knows that no matter what medication you take orally, depending on what you're taking, a significant percentage, up to, I've seen some antibiotics where up to 40% of the antibiotic is excreted in urine or feces. That's a big waste. Might as well go into the hospital, hook yourself up to an IV. There you get 80 to 90% usage of the antibiotic. And it's immediate. You don't got to wait, 2 to 6 hours for it to be digested, go through your small intestine, large intestine, and then be absorbed. Well, a similar thing with insulin treatment, or with pre-diabetes and early stages of diabetes 1 and 2. The medication's not helping, folks. The pharmaceutical industry, and they also mentioned in this article that the American approach to diet, to treating glucose-related diseases, is chaotic at best. The approach that we take doesn't work. The system, all of those, I think it's endocrinologists or rheumatologists that handle that kind of disease. I'm not sure. But anyway, the people that handle that kind of disease are so overworked, and there's not enough of them. The system's clogged. So it means there's very little ability to change the approach and stop this. So the whole system needs to be shook up. And that's what this article is basically talking about. Need to reassess the approach and consider, instead of giving those people pills to take that really, in the long run, statistically are not helping anybody, why not teach them how to start doing insulin injections when you know for sure that they have a glucose-related disease? Just immediately start it. Don't say, oh yeah, just eliminate all of your sugar, eliminate, you can only have 100 grams of carbs a day, when they're the point that they have to not calorie count, but milligram count or gram count. It's already time to start teaching them how to inject themselves. That way, if that day comes, they already know how. Or maybe every now and then, while they're monitoring things, they'll be injecting themselves like, oh yeah, today my daily goal for sugar is, let's say somebody says their daily goal for sugar is not to go over 20 grams. I got 22 grams today in the morning, so the bolus, I think that's after meal, So my after bolus, I'm going to do an after bolus of 1 milligram of metformin or whatever insulin that they're using. Um, this will prolong and preserve those islet cells so that their diabetes doesn't progress so quickly. And also, what it will do, that's another thing. This is another thing that the article mentioned: the fact that in the U.S. specifically, we have so many complications that sometimes lead to fatality because of glucose-related diseases. Because our approach, oh wow, yeah, you had an ER visit. Oh, well, they said that you were in a hyperglycemic crisis. Oh, okay. Oh wow, yeah. So they said that your glucose level in your urine was 2 times the standard. Oops. Yeah, you're diabetic now. That's too late, folks. The nephrons have already been damaged. That's too late. If the care provider would have tested that guy or that gal's sugar regularly and said, "Oh, I see that I said twice this week you've had a 200. We're going to start monitoring your sugar after every meal. No, you're not diabetic yet." And I would suggest for doctors to write prescriptions for continuous glucose monitors. That way people who are on the borderline, they got a patch and they're watching their sugar all the time. I mean, be aggressive with treatment. Read studies. You know, people don't just need to sit at their desk in their little stool, and do nothing. Go through records, look like they're busy. They certainly don't correct grammar on charts, I'll say that. Or go through charts and remove all the emotion. Who cares about the stupid emotion? My experience, VA and some of my providers, I mean, some of them don't like me. I can be abrasive because I'm direct, I'm upfront. I'll speak analytically and scientifically. My friends and my family, I talk out of emotion. Somebody that I'm, encountering on a flight or in a line at a grocery store, more than likely I probably won't. Unless, we seem to be striking up commonality, common spirit, or common interest. Then maybe a little emotion. But otherwise, with a stranger, especially in a business or a scientific setting, the only thing that's required in my book is empathy. From me and from them. But anyway, why don't we remove some of the emotional garbage and partial garbage that's put in charting? It doesn't belong there. Because all it becomes, at least in the VA area, all it becomes is a means to say, oh yeah, that's my friend. They don't like him or her. Okay, I don't either. Then next thing you know, you have a disruptive behavior report in the system. That's what happened to me. And it's interesting, all of the people who made these statements are either part of the call center, and some of the people at the call center I worked with before. I know what kind of people some of them are, and I know what kind of care they're giving, because generally, unless some kind of crisis or great dramatic emotional change happens, people don't change. And it's a matter of choice too. Even if you do go through a big catharsis, you get saved, or you have a great, just monumental what could we put it? A exception. I'll use what we use in family therapy and pastoral counseling. You got a great exception to an event. A big realization. The light bulb goes on. You're like, hey, this worked before. I'm going to do it all the time. Unless you have one of those events and you make a choice to continue the direction you're going. If you don't, you won't change. It's just what my daughter and I call is theater. It's just theater. Everybody loves the theater, but when you go home, you talk about theater. You don't integrate it into your life, and you certainly don't believe it as full of truth. But why don't these people and medicine, change their approach to treating people and be aggressive, with helping people and reading the studies and being experts in their field. You know, I've worked for companies that have been connected to Karma, Tesla, and I've worked at, call center companies before. Um, Actually, I did it for school systems. I did it for court systems. I've done it a few times. And I was the most impressed I've ever been with a company's marketing is Lucid. I think that Lucid's marketing team, they're aggressive. They present their vision, their mission for their company. They present how they're different. If I had money, I would buy a Lucid car just because of the marketing. It tells you what kind of people you're dealing with. You go to their website, everything is perfectly laid out. I think I would like these people. I think I would like the company. And you remember the last statement. They're saying, why focus, or something to the matter, something similar to, why focus on building a great, acceptable, affordable electric vehicle that conforms to industry standards and impresses people, and then it goes to the end. Or why don't you just build the best damn car? I love that commercial. It tells you what you're dealing with. I like people like that. Why can't more people involved in medicine have the same approach? I'm going to be the best damn nurse practitioner, best damn doctor. Walk in there, say, hey, Mrs. Johnson, hey, Mr. Smith, how you doing? How's the kids? Or how's the grandkids? Or, how are things going at home? How's your crazy dog? Make your connection. That's what we do in expository preaching. Make your connection. Is that dog still doing that crazy stuff in the house? Crack a joke so they know that you know who they are, and so they know that you can relate to their life. 3, bring out the facts and present your case. Okay, now I see some of your testing here for your blood shows high glucose. Now, this is the second test we've done this month, and what I'm going to do is order, first of all, an H1BC, H1AC, darn it, why do I always do that? An H1AC, and I'm going to have you take home some testing strips. No, you don't have to do it here. I trust you. And I want you to keep a log. And, our office staff, actually for diabetics, we created a little template. I want a week of sugar logging. And you're going to do this sugar logging for a week. And then after that, you're going to make an appointment, come back in, and we are going to do a fasting glucose. And then we'll have your H1C before. And then after this, we'll have a fasting glucose as well. And plus, I'm sure you'll have a couple, at least 7 logged. Because your night, that's a fast. You fast until morning. That's a fasting glucose. So, and then we're going to look at things and we're going to address things from there. And that's the point that the doctor, considers, okay, if this guy or this gal, we're seeing high glucose consistently, our testing inside here, plus in addition to what they have done, shows that there's some concern, we're going to take it the next step. And we're going to, some people may think it's cruel and mean, but I think glucose monitoring, continuous glucose monitoring, I think that's the cat's meow. You can see when somebody goes out to eat, they can check their sugar. They don't got to bring out the dumb kit, alcohol their arm up and their finger or whatever, mess around with strips and all of this garbage. They just pull out their phone or even their watch and they can see, oh, yep, I just had that shake an hour ago from Popeyes or whatever. Oh yeah, my sugar has already went up 25. Okay, yeah, maybe I better do that bolus that I prepared but put in my backpack instead of doing. It's better than all the testing strip nonsense. And it saves the planet too, you know, all the oil and either brass or gold, probably not gold, probably brass that they put on those things, which you can't reuse. I've tried. I tried to clean them with alcohol and with water. It doesn't work because the blood gets in there and it covers them. I mean, it's interesting though. That whole technology is very similar to the mishkan. You know, back a long time ago, 4,500 years ago, when people would do a sacrifice, they would sprinkle the tabernacle with blood, and it would cause a very, you know, I don't want to get into, you know, theory type stuff about that, but it's just fascinating. This technology is very similar to that. Blood conducts electricity. It's fascinating, very fascinating. But yeah, you can't reuse them. I tried brushing them. You just can't because the blood gets on the metal there. There's just pieces left. You know, hemoglobin sticks to it, and then you may or may not get a good test. It's not worth it. I've got one that worked and two others that were aired out, so I stopped doing it and just continued using the 50. I mean, who decided 50 strips go in a container? I mean, who decided that? You know, 50 strips do not last you 30 days. If somebody's taking their blood sugar once a day, what's the point? You know, what's the point? Oh, I'm going to take it in the morning. Then you got a fasting glucose every day. So, of course, it's going to be, depending on what your medical issue is, it's either going to be really low or it's going to be too high. You know, what's the point? You got to have a whole picture. So, you know, if you're going to send people home for a month to do testing or a week to do testing, give them enough strips. And actually, you can get now over the counter, you can get the Dexcom continuous glucose monitor. It's like $100. The Libre, you need a prescription. But it's always good to have that. That way you have real time, you know. Within an hour, you've already started digesting some of your meals, so you can start to look at your sugar and see what's going on. You know, you should still be counting your carb grams, counting your sugar grams, and if you also have pancreatic issues involving cholesterol and triglycerides, then you should, you know, calculate that stuff too. Your non-sugar carbs, calculate those. I think it's like 3 to 5 milligram. No, it's for every 3 to 5 grams of sugar, it's 1 milligram of glucose. I think I forgot that darn calculation. It's just a roundabout estimation. It's like 3 to 5 milligrams for every gram of sugar or every gram of carb. I mean, carbs turn to sugar anyway. Something like that, anyway. But if our doctors were more aggressive and our nurse practitioners more aggressive and our PAs with the treatment of diabetes, we wouldn't have a crisis forming. And that's another thing this article discussed, the crisis coming. We have more juvenile and child onset diabetes than we ever have in history. So if we don't get our head on right and start approaching it right, the next 20 years, we're going to have a massive problem of complications related to diabetes. It's going to become endemic to our country, and that's a security risk. My area, that's a national security risk when you have 20% of your population that's diabetic. And also, the pharmaceutical infrastructure can't support that much insulin production. So then it becomes a pandemic. Again, right in my area, national security. Well, it used to be my area. Now I'm just some guy, but I do have a experience, quite a bit of experience in this stuff. And hopefully I can help people out there with some of these thoughts, and especially people that are on the oral medications. You're a pre-diabetic, or you're just starting, your diabetes is onset. I think that's the word they use. Early onset? No, I think that's starting, means starting prematurely. Anyway, yeah. If this is you, it gives you something to consider. And you're not going to find a lot of doctors at this point who will be aggressive and who will consider this study, this position of this study that I'm talking about. But I think a very intelligent doctor, especially an academic, will consider it and see, well, you know what? That's a good point. Why put people on oral medication that more than likely, statistically, is not going to help them? And if it's not going to help them, they're going to have a lot of crises, which are going to cause cardiovascular damage, pancreatic damage. It's going to destroy those islet cells, because nothing is happening to help that pathway heal, or at least preserve those islet cells. And we have to consider the kidneys. Yeah, maybe teaching somebody how to do a bolus once or twice a day, very low dosage. I think, yeah, I'm going to consider it. It'll certainly be more helpful to people out there. Hope this helped, folks.